Good afternoon. This is the WeatherFlow Wind Alert Update for Saturday, February the 6th. It's about 3:15 p.m. And let's go ahead and talk about the low pressure system that is going to be developing off the coast tonight and into tomorrow morning. Many models are indicating that this system will rapidly intensify, which means it's going to bring four key elements to our area for significant coastal impacts. So number one, a heavy rain event. Number two, a high wind event. Number three, the result of those first two being higher than normal high tides to possibly cause some shallow coastal flooding. And then number four, we could even see some frozen precipitation wrapping around this system. It just depends on how much cool air is going to be being pulled down from the north to meet it. So it's going to be a close call, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Right now, let's look at the surface map, see what's going on over the region. Right now, we have a ridge of high pressure built up and down the eastern seaboard. It's bringing down a northeast wind. There's a little bit of a gradient built into South Carolina down into northern Georgia to show some moderate to strong east-northeasterly winds right now as a result of that. In time, this high pressure should decay over this area, and we'll be left with this lobe of high pressure out here to the west. So one thing we're looking at right here is this low pressure moving down across Texas, Louisiana towards the Gulf of Mexico. The surge of Gulf moisture in this area in this short wave it's going to be transferring its energy over to this very quickly tonight. Once it makes contact with the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to transfer its energy, especially with the subtropical jet riding very fast along this area. It's going to pull all of that moisture over, and so we'll have surface moisture and mid-level moisture, a heavier profile of that going on. Now, once this storm starts to gain its vorticity off the coast of South Carolina, we're going to see some heavier winds, some northerly winds, maybe even some northwesterly winds by tomorrow morning. And this is going to be the maker or breaker of how much cool air is going to be pulled down from the north. So with high pressure here, we're going to be seeing some cool air coming down from the northwest. We also have a low pressure that's going to be setting up over the Great Lakes. We thought it might be here by now, but it looks like it's slowing down maybe to this area, but it's also going to be pushing some cooler air down into that area. The main focus here is going to be how much cool air is going to be funneled down around this system, and that's going to determine whether or not we receive frozen precipitation to begin with or not. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and take a look at GRE on radar and see what's going on in the area. Here's our water vapor imagery, and it looks like things are fairly quiet right now. We have a few, looks like a few showers making their way on shore just ahead of the short wave. Here's the short wave right here. This is going to be ground zero where the low is going to start to develop later. Here's the mid-level low that's heading down towards the Gulf of Mexico. So once that happens, like I said, it's going to be transferring its energy over, and then all of this is going to come together as a low and then slowly head up the coastline. So that's what we're looking at as far as the system and what's going on with radar and this mid-level low and all of this moisture coming up across from the Gulf of Mexico across Florida. All right, let's go ahead and close that out and talk about the Plume Viewer. So here's the amount of rain that we're looking at, and some of the models take it up to 1 inch here, but as we look at the total quantitative precipitation, we're looking at the system dropping a total of 1.5 inches on an average, but some of these models bring this up to over 4 inches, so 4.25, 4.35 inches to be exact. Is one of the members is saying that this system total rainfall could have this much in our area. So if we look at the snow totals out of all of these models, here's the snow amounts that some of the models are forecasting. We're calling for 1 inch, just a little over an inch here. And one model is actually taking this all the way up to 8.21 inches. So I'm not sure if that's going to be correct or not, but we're probably looking at a 1 to 2 inch possibility of some snow with no accumulations. The ground is still rather warm, and even if we look at the soil temperatures right now for the area, we see that the ground temperatures are in the low 40s, 43 to 44 degrees for the most part, 46 along the coastline in some areas. So we have some warm factors to deal with here when we talk about whether or not we're going to get frozen precipitation. Our sea surface temperatures are 55 degrees, and if we go back to the surface map and look at where the low is going to be developing, we have the Gulf Stream right here, which is 78 to 80 degrees. It's going to be pulling some of that surface warmth around it and wrapping around. So we also have some of that going on. We have sea surface temperatures, ground temperatures, all sort of keeping things warmer at the ground. Now, if we get a significant snow event, that may cool the atmosphere and we may get some accumulation, but that's not expected right now, and we can't say for certain whether or not that's going to happen. All right, so with that said, the total snow amount that the Plume Viewer is coming up with has about 2.5. Some of these are really high. I probably wouldn't go with that one right there. I would go with this lower mean mark at 2.71 to 2.5 if we're going to get any significant snowfall for the area. All right, here's the jet stream. here's the subtropical jet that I was talking about earlier, where all that moisture is coming across the Gulf. Here's the polar jet dipping down where that low level or the mid-level low is, and that's going to transfer its energy over and then ride up the subtropical jet up the coastline, and this is where the storm is going to ride. Now the exact path is going to be widened because the subtropical jet is starting to widen itself. So we don't really know the path for sure, but for right now, for South Carolina, for the all intents and purposes in the immediate future, we should be watching for those 4 key elements I talked about earlier: the wind, the rain, the higher than normal tide, and the frozen precip. So numerical model, I'm going to go with the NAM 4 kilometer. This is high resolution model, and sort of put this into time and watch this mid-level low over here. Watch the low pressure develop off the Florida Georgia coastline and start to slide up the coast. Here we go. Here's where the mid-level low starts to transfer its energy over. There's where the surface low develops, and then as it comes together, and this is 9Z Sunday, so that means it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. And as it starts to come together, it comes closer to the coastline and really starts to deepen in pressure. So it goes from, in just a matter of hours, from 1,003 millibars, it looks like it's going to drop down to 989 millibars and even 982 millibars by tomorrow afternoon. So that's kind of what the NAM 4 kilometer is showing, that the system, it actually does not have any frozen precip associated with it. It has mostly rain involved as the system drifts off to the east-northeast. So right now, currently, here's the SPC Mesoscale model. And you can see that this area of low pressure starting to come together here off of Florida. There's the short wave. There is a little bit of convection starting to come along with it. This low pressure over here, it looks like things are starting to come together. The gradient is tight along our coast from that high pressure to the north. So we even have a little bit of top spin from that high pressure to the north. We call this a Rex block when you have high to the north, low to the south. It's not a full setup, but it's sort of the beginnings of what could be a Rex block. I think that high pressure to the north is going to erode, and then the low pressure will just push up into that area. So nothing for certain as far as the northeast winds. They may toggle back to the northeast and ultimately the north as time goes on. Here's Datascope for Charleston, our WeatherFlow Datascope viewer, and earlier we were showing 20 to 26 knots. Now we're down to 18 to 22, so you can see these gradients are flexing in and out of the coastline. And here we go right here. It looks like it peaked out between 1 and 2 p.m. Or 2:30, and now the winds are on their way down. So we could see some more of these pulses occur along the coastline throughout the rest of the day and even tonight. And then winds will start really cranking up once that low actually develops. And the models bring those winds up into the upper 20s to low 30s and possibly even gusting into the low 40s, low to mid 40s. So we can't rule that out yet. The SCA warnings are up. And we may even be seeing some gale warnings are probably already listed on the National Weather Service site for tomorrow. So here's a model run for the 2-meter temperature. Now this is the air temperature, and this is valid for, I'm going to go ahead and go out to 24 hours, and this is for Sunday morning when we wake up. We're looking at the air temperatures being, and this is from the GFS modeling, at 39 degrees, a little bit warmer along the coast, maybe even about 40 degrees when we wake up. And then as time goes on, it looks like that low pressure system, you can see that wedge of cooler air as it starts to drive down the mass around it. The temperatures start to fall a couple of degrees. So as we get into 36 hours, we get back into a little bit of a warming phase. But this section right here, tomorrow morning, is going to be very important whether or not we see that frozen precipitation. This is a GFS model run on the 2-meter temperatures, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. It just means the temperatures are guidance into the mid to upper 30s. So, like I said, with warmer sea surface temperatures and forecast warmer air temperatures and the warmer ground temperatures, it's not looking that good for a snowfall, but it's not impossible. So here's the Euro model, and this is for 12 hours out, and we're looking at, here's 18 hours. Go ahead and run this out in 24 hours. Now this model actually had it closer to the coastline on an earlier run, and as we go into time to 30 hours, and here's 36 hours and 42, that's about where the Euro model has the snowfall potentials going on. So that's to our north, a little bit to the west, mainly to the north is where this one goes, and then a peak snowfall of 7 inches up in that area. So again, the Euro model had it over us. Now it doesn't have it over us. All these models are starting to jump around a little bit. They're not exactly sure if we're going to get it. We're not exactly sure if we're going to get any snow either. The National Weather Service is still holding to 1 to 2 inch possibilities. But here's the WPC possibility forecast. This is from NOAA, and this is by tomorrow morning when we wake up. Here's the possibility for greater than 1 inch of snow, and we're not even in window yet by the time we wake up. But as we go on into time through Sunday midday, we see the chances increase for that. So we're looking at 40% chance, 30 to 40% chance of seeing greater than 1 inch. And even if we look at the 2-inch mark for the same time period, the chances fall off, but we still have a chance of seeing greater than 2 inches. And even if we go to 4 inches, we're still in a very small possibility for that. But it looks like they're holding on to the potential for snowfall somewhere between 1 and 2 inches. It's not for sure. The possibility is higher for greater than 1 inch, but less for more than 2 inches. So if any accumulation were to occur, it'd probably be on bridges and higher structures. But the certainty is not very high right now. The probability of this occurring, I think, was 40% this morning. It could be, they could still have it at 40% now. And the last Plume Viewer run I saw had it at 28%, so that was up a little bit from this morning as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at for wintry precip and the forecast for today. I will try to get back on tonight as things change and the new model guidance has come out at 6 p.m. So until then, stay safe, and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.